Welcome to HortTube. My name is Jim Putnam. This is the weekly garden tour that I'm doing here in Raleigh, North Carolina, Zone 7B. This is a project that's been going on a couple years at this point, and there's an entire playlist for it if you want to go back and catch up. This landscape has come a long way during that time, and it continues to move forward. And as an example of that, I'm standing in the middle of all the containers that have been pulled together, and in the process of deciding what's going to go in containers for this season, and then redistribute the containers through the landscape. You'll see a video in the next few days on some of the selections in the containers, and then in future weekly update videos, you'll see where they're placed throughout the landscape. Some things staying in the containers, some things moving out and moving on, that kind of thing. I showed the pearls of perfume mock orange over here last week, and now the flowers are pretty much completely open on this spring flush of flowers. This one is supposed to continue to have some ongoing flowers through the summer, so we'll be keeping an eye on that. Also standing in the middle of shrubs from one end of the driveway to the other that are for upcoming projects. I got a really exciting project down at a historic property in the Southern Pines area. So that video will be coming up, and two other parts of a landscape job that are ongoing that you guys have seen the first three parts of. So those videos are coming up, but the place is chaos right here, right now. All right, there's a woodpecker over here right this second that's making some noise. I don't know if you'll be able to hear it in the mic or not. Somebody asked in another video about for an update on the Clethra that's in the front garden space here. I had meant for these to be 3 ruby spice Clethra, and one of them turned out to be white. So these are ruby spice Clethra, this one, and this one's hummingbird, which is a white variety, and you can see it has a little bit more of a compact habit, and the flower buds are coming on them now. But they look great. They have done very, very well through that first year last year, and there's almost nothing better for pollinators. These are native shrubs for our native pollinators, and it's amazing how much attention these actually get when they start flowering. But typically, you have your early flowering shrubs, which are done their thing already, and then you have summer. Well, I would consider late spring or summer flowering shrubs, which Clethra kind of belong to that group. Another native up here is a Serviceberry, and there are, where the flowers were, the fruit is starting to form, and a few of them have gotten a little bit of color on them up here already. You'd have to fight the birds for these to actually get them, because the birds love them so much, but the fruit on the Serviceberry is so sweet. It's just really kind of amazing. I think it doesn't have any kind of shelf life, and that's why it's not served. You will see jellies and jams, from Serviceberry, but I wish it was more commercially viable, because it is a great fruit. Down here, this swoosh of annuals that was planted just a little over a week ago has really greened up, and it'll be hard to know that from week over week videos like this. It's only been 6 or 7 days since I filmed last time out here, but it's amazing to me what can happen in a single week once these annuals start to get some roots under them and start to get some growth. But these were planted, cut back, and in just, again, 7 to 8 days, they have really exploded. I think you'll see over the next couple of weeks how quickly these will fill in. Another awesome fruiting native is this Rose's Blush blueberry. I won't actually claim these blueberries. I'll give them to let the birds have them. I have some other blueberries that I'll cover and protect, but these the birds can have. You can see the fruit forming now. Tons of them. This plant's called Rose's Blush. You can see why, because all of the new growth on it all season long has this kind of a purplish hue to it, really. But it's a real standout in the landscape. It's got a bit of a one branch going off to the right there. After this fruit is taken, I'll take this piece of it off and get the plant a little more compact.
Well, we have a lot of changes that have been going on in the landscape, as you know as well. The annuals that we planted are starting to get comfortable in their space, which is awesome. We do have a couple of videos that just went up, shade perennials and sun perennials. Some of them, mainly the sun ones, of course, are right across the front here. So we'll be anxious to see how they get comfortable in their space as well. Hoping some of these bulbs die back a little faster. They're looking a little tough in the landscape. So we'll see about that. And we have a pesky little spiderwort coming up. I'm sure a lot of you love that, but it shows up everywhere. And sometimes places you just don't want it. We have one other thing in our front bed that people do tend to ask about, and that's this butterfly house. We got it at Logan's downtown. If you're local, you'll be able to get one there. Hopefully, anyway. We're always on the lookout for good yard art and sort of quirky, neat things. Not always the easiest thing to come by, but we're always looking for it.
In the last couple of weeks, you guys have seen videos from Ram's beautiful garden down in Athens, Georgia. You've seen 2 videos from Dr. Durr, one from Dr. Armitage. A couple of new hydrangeas have gone into this shade space in the garden this week. These were from Dr. Durr. A lot of these, what's fun sometimes about visiting with gardeners is they won't let you go home without plants, and we're getting to the point here where we can do the same. You know, just dig something out of the ground and make sure you're sending them home with something fun. These are Calla Lilies actually that were actually came from a garden where. You know, again, as a gifted plant, and they're in a part shade, kind of semi-moist conditions here, and it's just absolutely taken off. And the first 2 flowers have come up on them. So the annuals you guys saw in a video go in here along the turf border, and then the sun perennial video, the perennials that went in here. Behind me, behind this row of shrubs that's down the middle of this bed, was where the majority of those shade perennials went in the shade perennial plant video this past week. I've talked about a few times so far this season is that when you're doing a new landscape project, it takes a long time for the shrubs and the small trees and those kinds of things to become an impact in the landscape. I've kind of relied on all this color that I call clown college for the last year and a half of this project. But now finally the shrubs are, you know, they're coming out racing this year. This white wedding hydrangea's literally grown 18 inches. And here we are in, you know, it's only this, second week of May. This viburnum nudum is as tall as I am. And it was planted as a little plant this tall 2 seasons ago. So, you know, and it's in full flower now. We saw a dwarf viburnum nudum that I have to have. It's not been released yet, and I have to have one as soon as it is. The other day they were only maybe 2.5 to 3 feet tall, perfect little balls with the flowers on them, just like our native viburnum nudum here. But again, you can see the middle of this bed actually starting to come together, and the shrubs actually becoming part of the composition now. Finally, in the middle of May, the Snapdragons are actually showing off. These were so slow to flower, although the plants have looked great. Leaving them in place, you probably saw the yellow ones in the front garden that are a little more compact. This variety is quite tall, but they were very, very late to flower. They look great now, and you know, I've seen some pollinators on them as well. Back here in the background, you'll see all of the cool season veggies still look fantastic, and got neighbors coming to pick lettuce because it's more than it ever need. Tomatoes have gone from maybe 6 inches to 12 inches in the last week and a half or so, so they're jumping. Potatoes back there in the background looking great. Dahlias, you know, we plant dahlias basically all the way around the vegetable garden. Some are done from seed and were collected last year, and some are hybrids, the dinner plate dahlias, and then around the front edge here are herbs. And so there's a lot of things going on here. These dahlias, most of them will end up, in the 5 to 6 foot range. I'm going to try to do a little bit better job this year of keeping control over those, and I'll show that as the season goes on. But everything's just exploding, and there's flower buds all over these dahlias. I think we'll see actual flowers on them next week. And one other thing here, these are the peonies. This was a video that I did almost a couple years ago, a year and a half ago, transplanting these peonies into this space. And finally, the plants are big and full, and there's actual flowers coming on them. There's a beautiful light pink, and I don't know these varieties because they were in the ground here already, but this one is super, super fragrant, this light pink variety. One thing I've said about this garden is pretty much everything out here is part shade. It gets great bright light, and most areas get some sun. Pretty much all areas get some direct sun every day. The area we just right over here where the vegetables are tends to be the longest. The sun is on a space all day. As you get further back here to where this building is, where there's large trees back here behind me. This area doesn't get quite as much sun, but again, it's getting enough that I can put some shade and sun things together. This Florida Sunshine Elysium gets plenty of protection. It doesn't really like a lot of midday or early afternoon sun, and it's getting plenty of protection back here. There's a camellia back here, Farfugium that definitely would go in the shade, but right here with it, here's a rose called It's a Breeze, and it is absolutely loaded with flower buds. What I like about this is the sun happens to be that direction, and so it's pulling all the flowers aimed right at where the camera is, and so all the flowers are on display for anyone who's looking back into this area, and it seems to be getting adequate sun, to be in full bloom. It's not quite in full bloom. It'll be another week and a half or so before it's fully colored up. And it's next to a rosemary, another, plant that thrives in the sun. And then this grapevine is called razzmatazz. It has tiny little grapes on it, but lots and lots of them. They're very sweet. It needs a little more work on this building, and sometime later in this season, I got to get this under control a bit more. But I love the texture and colors of this little grouping, how this has actually turned out this season. After this rose puts on this full flower, I'll get after it pretty hard. I'll cut it back pretty hard, and it'll flush out and bloom again. Most of these things, I probably want to keep them in about the same size they are now going forward. So there you go. I'm trying to point out each week, some little space that was, kind of planned together like this, and and show these things off. And again, it's kind of surprising at times that you can blend these sun and shade things together if you have the right kind of spaces where it's just not all full sun, but good bright light. You can blend some of these things together. So thank you guys for following along with this project. And again, you can see lots of things have, even this past week, I think maybe probably 100 plants went in the ground with the 2 perennial videos, and lots more planned for this spring. Thanks for watching.